not Amazon.
So me and this guy named Paul Rosalie, who basically is Tarzan. He lives in the jungle. We went out deep and we just went crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, can I get that same experience in Neuralink?
Probably, yeah.
I guess that is the question for non-disabled people. Do you think that there's a lot in our perception, in our experience of the world that could be explored, that could be played with using Neuralink?
Yeah, I mean, Neuralink is really a generalized input-output device. You know, it's reading electrical signals and generating electrical signals. And I mean, everything that you've ever experienced in your whole life, smell, you know, emotions, all of those are electrical signals. So it's kind of weird to think that your entire life experience is distilled down to electrical signals from neurons, but that is in fact the case. Or I mean, that's at least what all the evidence points to. So, I mean, you could trigger the right neuron. You could trigger a particular scent. You could certainly make things glow. I mean, do pretty much anything. I mean, really, you can think of the brain as a biological computer. So if there are certain, say, chips or elements of that biological computer that are broken, let's say your ability to, if you've got a stroke, that means you've got some body brain damage. Let's say it's a speech generation or the ability to move your left hand. That's the kind of thing that a Neuralink could solve. If you've got like a massive amount of memory loss that's just gone, well, we can't get the memories back. We could restore your ability to make memories, but we can't, you know, restore memories that are fully gone. Now I should say, if maybe part of the memory is there, and the means of accessing the memory is the part that's broken, then we could re-enable the ability to access the memory. So, but you can think of like RAM in your computer. If the RAM is destroyed, or your SD card is destroyed, we can't get that back. But if the connection to the SD card is destroyed, we can fix that. If it is fixable physically, then it can be fixed.
Of course, with AI, you can, just like you can repair photographs and fill in missing parts of photographs, maybe you can do the same.
You could say like create the most probable set of memories based on all the information you have about that person. You could then, it would be probabilistic restoration of memory. Now we're getting pretty esoteric here.
But that is one of the most beautiful aspects of the human experience, is remembering the good memories. Like we live most of our life, as Danny Kahneman has talked about, in our memories, not in the actual moment. We're collecting memories and we kind of relive them in our head. And that's the good times. If you just integrate over our entire life, it's remembering the good times. That produces the largest amount of happiness. So
yeah, well, I mean, what are we but our memory? And what is death but the loss of memory? Loss of information. You know, if you could say like, well, if you could run a thought experiment where if you were disintegrated painlessly and then reintegrated a moment later, like teleportation, I guess, provided there's no information loss, the fact that your one body was disintegrated is irrelevant.
And memories is just such a huge part of that.
Death is fundamentally the loss of information, the loss of memory.
So if we can store them as accurately as possible, we basically achieve a kind of immortality.
Yeah.
You've talked about the threats, the safety concerns of AI. Let's look at long-term visions. Do you think Neuralink is, in your view, the best current approach we have for AI safety?
It's an idea that may help with AI safety. Certainly not. I wouldn't want to claim it's like some panacea or something. That's a sure thing. But I mean, many years ago, I was thinking like, well, what would inhibit alignment of collective human will with artificial intelligence? And the low data rate of humans, especially our slow output rate, would necessarily, just because the communication is so slow, would diminish the link between humans and computers. Like the more you are a tree, the less you know what the tree is. Like, let's say you look at a tree, you look at this plant, whatever, and like, hey, I'd really like to make that plant happy, but it's not saying what, you know.
So the more we increase the data rate that humans can intake and output, then that means that the higher the chance we have in a world full of AGIs.
Yeah, we could better align collective human will with AI if the output rate, especially, was dramatically increased. Like, I think there's potential to increase the output rate by, I don't know, 3, maybe 6, maybe more orders of magnitude. So it's better than the current situation.
And that output rate will be by increasing the number of electrodes, number of channels, and also maybe implanting multiple Neuralinks.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be a world in the next couple of decades where it's hundreds of millions of people have Neuralinks?
Yeah, I do.
You think when when they see the capabilities, the superhuman capabilities that are possible, and then the safety is demonstrated.
Yeah, if it's extremely safe, and you and you can have superhuman abilities, and let's say you can upload your memories, so you wouldn't lose memories, then I think probably a lot of people would choose to have it. It would supersede the cell phone, for example. I mean, the biggest problem that say a phone has is trying to figure out what you want. So that's why you've got autocomplete, and you've got output, which is all the pixels on the screen. But from the perspective of the human, the output is so friggin' slow. Desktop or phone is desperately just trying to understand what you want. And there's an eternity between every keystroke from a computer standpoint.
Yeah.
So
that's why the computer's talking to tree, the slow-moving tree that's trying to swipe.
Yeah. So if you have computers that are doing trillions of instructions per second, and a whole second went by, there's a trillion things it could have done.
Yeah, I think it's exciting and scary for people because once you have a very high bit rate, it changes the human experience in a way that's very hard to imagine.
Yeah, we would be something different. I mean, some sort of futuristic cyborg. I mean, we're obviously talking about, by the way, like it's not like around the corner. If you ask me what the distant future is, like maybe this is like, it's not super far away, but 10, 15 years, that kind of thing.
When can I get one? 10 years?
Probably less than 10 years. Depends what you want to do,
Hey, if I can get like 1,000 BPS,
1,000 BPS,
and it's safe, and I can just interact with the computer while laying back and eating Cheetos. I don't eat Cheetos. There's certain aspects of human-computer interaction when done more efficiently and more enjoyably are like worth it.
Well, we feel pretty confident that I think maybe within the next year or two that someone with a Neuralink implant will be able to outperform a programmer because the reaction time will be faster.
I got to visit Memphis.
Yeah.
You're going big on compute.
Yeah.
And you've also said play to win or don't play at all. So
yeah.
What does it take to win?
For AI, that means you've got to have the most powerful training compute. And the rate of improvement of training compute has to be faster than everyone else, or you will not win. Your AI will be worse.
So how can Grok, let's say 3, that might be available like next year?
Well, hopefully end of this year.
Grok 3.
If we're lucky. Yeah.
How can that be the best LLM, the best AI system available in the world? How much of it is compute? How much of it is data? How much of it is like post-training? How much of it is the product that you package it up in? All that kind of stuff.
I mean, they won't matter. It's sort of like saying what if let's say it's a Formula 1 race, like what matters more, the car or the driver? I mean, they both matter. If your car is not fast, then if it's like let's say it's half the horsepower of the competitors, the best driver will still lose. If it's twice the horsepower, then probably even a mediocre driver will still win. So the training computer is kind of like the engine. How many there's horsepower of the engine? So you want to try to do the best on that, and then how efficiently do you use that training compute, and how efficiently do you do the inference, the use of the AI. So obviously that comes down to human talent, and then what unique access to data do you have? That plays a role.
Using Twitter data would be useful?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the leading AI companies have already scraped all the Twitter data. I don't think they have. So on a go-forward basis, what's useful is the fact that it's up to the second. That's because it's hard for them to scrape in real time. So there's an immediacy advantage that Grok has already. I think with Tesla and the real-time video coming from several million cars, ultimately tens of millions of cars, with Optimus, there might be hundreds of millions of Optimus robots, maybe billions, learning a tremendous amount from the real world. That's the biggest source of data. I think ultimately is sort of Optimus. Optimus is going to be the biggest source of data because reality scales. Reality scales to the scale of reality. It's actually humbling to see how little data humans have actually been able to accumulate. Really, if you see how many trillions of usable tokens have humans generated, where on a non-duplicative, like just counting spam and repetitive stuff, it's not a huge number. You run out pretty quickly.
And Optimus can go, so Tesla cars unfortunately have to stay on the road. Optimus robot can go anywhere. There's more reality off the road and go off-road.
I mean, the Optimus robot can pick up the cup and see, did it pick up the cup in the right way? Did it, say, pour water in the cup? Did the water go in the cup or not go in the cup? Did it spill water or not? mean, but it can do that at scale times a billion. So generate useful data from reality. So cause and effect stuff.
What do you think it takes to get to mass production of humanoid robots like that?
It's the same as cars. And the global capacity for vehicles is about 100 million a year. And it could be higher. It's just that the demand is on the order of 100 million a year. And then there's roughly 2 billion vehicles that are in use in some way. So, which makes sense. Like the life of a vehicle is about 20 years. So at steady state, you can have 100 million vehicles produced a year with a 2 billion vehicle fleet, roughly. Now for humanoid robots, the utility is much greater. So my guess is humanoid robots are more like a billion plus per year.
But, until you came along and started building Optimus, it was thought to be an extremely difficult problem. I mean, it still is an extremely difficult problem.
So walk in the park. I mean, Optimus currently would struggle to walk in the park. I mean, it can walk in a park not too difficult, but it will be able to walk over a wide range of terrain.
Yeah, and pick up objects.
Yeah. It can already do that.
But like all kinds of objects.
Yeah.
All foreign objects. I mean, pouring water in a cup, not trivial. Because then, if you don't know anything about the container, it could be all kinds of containers.
Yeah, there's going to be an immense amount of engineering just going into the hand.
Yeah.
The hand might be close to half of all the engineering in Optimus. From an electromechanical standpoint, the hand is probably roughly half of the engineering.
But so much of the intelligence of humans goes into what we do with our hands.
Yeah.
Just the manipulation of the world, manipulation of objects in the world. Intelligent, safe manipulation of objects in the world,
Yeah. I mean, you start really thinking about your hand and how it works.
I do all the time.
The sensory control homunculus is we have humongous hands.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like your hands, the actuators, the muscles of your hand are almost overwhelmingly in your forearm. So your forearm has the muscles that actually control your hand. There's a few small muscles in the hand itself. Your hand is really like a skeleton meat puppet, and with cables. So the muscles that control your fingers are in your forearm, and they go through the carpal tunnel, which is like you've got a little collection of bones and a tiny tunnel that these cables, the tendons go through, and those tendons are mostly what move your hands.
And something like those tendons has to be re-engineered into the Optimus.
Yeah.
To do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So like the current Optimus, we try putting the actuators in the hand itself. Then you sort of end up having these like
giant hands.
Yeah, giant hands that look weird.
Yeah.
And then they don't actually have enough degrees of freedom or enough strength. So you realize, okay, that's why you got to put the actuators in the forearm. And just like a human, you got to run cables through a narrow tunnel to operate the fingers. And then there's also a reason for not having all the fingers the same length. So it wouldn't be expensive from an energy or evolutionary standpoint to have all your fingers be the same length. So why aren't they the same length?
Yeah, why not?
Because it's actually better to have different lengths. Your dexterity is better if you've got fingers of different lengths. There are more things you can do, and your dexterity is actually better if your fingers are different lengths. Like there's a reason for that little finger. Like why not have a little bigger?
Yeah,
because it allows you to it helps you with fine motor skills.
This little finger helps.
It does. But if you lost your little finger, you'd have noticeably less dexterity.
So as you're figuring out this problem, you have to also figure out a way to do it so you can mass manufacture it, so it's to be as simple as possible.
It's actually going to be quite complicated. The as possible part is quite a high bar. If you want to have a humanoid robot that can do things that a human can do, it's a very high bar. So our new arm has 22 degrees of freedom instead of 11, and has the actuators in the forearm. And these all the actuators are designed from scratch from physics first principles. The sensors are all designed from scratch, and we'll continue to put a tremendous amount of engineering effort into improving the hand. Like the hand, by hand I mean like the entire forearm from elbow forward is really the hand. So that's incredibly difficult engineering actually, and so the simplest possible version of a humanoid robot that can do even most, perhaps not all, of what a human can do is actually still very complicated. It's not simple. It's very difficult.
Can you just speak to what it takes for a great engineering team for you? What I saw in Memphis, the supercomputer cluster, is just this intense drive towards simplifying the process, understanding the process, constantly improving it, constantly iterating it.
Well, it's easy to say simplify it, and very difficult to do it. I have this very basic first principles algorithm that I run kind of as like a mantra, which is to first question the requirements, make the requirements less dumb. The requirements are always dumb to some degree. So if you want to solve by reducing the number of requirements, and no matter how small smart persons who gave you those requirements, they're still dumb to some degree. You have to start there, because otherwise you could get the perfect answer to the wrong question. So try to make the question the least wrong possible. That's what questioning the requirements means. And then the second thing is try to delete whatever the step is, the part or the process step. Sounds very obvious, but people often forget to try deleting it entirely. And if you're not forced to put back at least 10% of what you delete, you're not deleting enough. And it's somewhat illogically, people often, most of the time, feel as though they've succeeded if they've not been forced to put things back in. But actually they haven't, because they've been overly conservative and have left things in there that shouldn't be. So, and only the third thing is try to optimize it or simplify it. Again, these all sound, I think, very, very obvious when I say them, but the number of times I've made these mistakes is more than I care to remember. That's why I have this mantra. So, in fact, I'd say the most common mistake of smart engineers is to optimize a thing that should not exist.
So you, like you say, you run through the algorithm.
Yeah.
Basically, show up to a problem, show up to the supercomputer cluster and see the process and ask, can this be deleted?
Yeah, first try to delete it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not easy to do.
No, and actually, what generally makes people uneasy is that you've got to delete at least some of the things that you delete, you will put back in.
Yeah.
But going back to sort of where our limbic system can steer us wrong is that we tend to remember with sometimes a jarring level of pain where we deleted something that we subsequently needed. And so people remember that one time they forgot to put in this thing 3 years ago, and that caused them trouble. And so they overcorrect, and then they put too much stuff in there and overcomplicate things. So you actually have to say that we're deliberately going to delete more than we should. So that we're putting at least 1 in 10 things we're going to add back in.
And I've seen you suggest just that something should be deleted, and you can kind of see the pain.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Everybody feels a little bit of the pain.
Absolutely, and I tell them in advance, like, yeah, there's some of the things that we delete, we're going to put back in. And that, people get a little shocked by that. But it makes sense, because if you're so conservative as to never have to put anything back in, you obviously have a lot of stuff that isn't needed. So you got to overcorrect. This is, I would say, like a cortical override to a limbic instinct.
One of many that probably leads us astray.
Yeah. And there's like a step 4 as well, which is any given thing can be sped up. How fast do you think it can be done? Like whatever the speed is being done, it can be done faster. But you shouldn't speed things up until you try to delete it and optimize it, although you're speeding up something that shouldn't exist is absurd. And then the fifth thing is to automate it. And I've gone backwards so many times where I've automated something, sped it up, simplified it, and then deleted it. And I got tired of doing that. So that's why I've got this mantra that is a very effective 5-step process. It works great.
Well, when you've already automated, deleting must be real painful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's like, wow, I really wasted a lot of effort there.
Yeah. I mean, what you've done with the cluster in Memphis is incredible. Just in a handful of weeks.
Yeah, it's not working yet, so I don't want to pop the champagne corks. In fact, I have a call in a few hours with the Memphis team because we're having some power fluctuation issues. So,
yes.
Yeah, it's kind of when you do synchronized training, or when you have all these computers that are training, where the training is synchronized to the sort of millisecond level, it's like having an orchestra, and the orchestra can go loud to silent very quickly, sub-second level, and then the electrical system kind of freaks out about that. If you suddenly see giant shifts, 10, 20 megawatts, several times a second, this is not what electrical systems are expecting to see.
So that's one of the many things you have to figure out: the cooling, the power, and then on the software as you go up the stack, how to do the distributed compute, all that.
Today's problem is dealing with extreme power jitter.
Power jitter.
Yeah.
There's a nice ring to that. So that's okay. And you stayed up late into the night, as you often do there.
Last week, yeah.
Last week.
Yeah, we finally got training going at oddly enough, roughly 4:20 a.m. Last Monday.
Total coincidence.
Yeah, I mean maybe it was 4:22 or something.
Yeah. It's that universe again with the jokes.
Exactly, just loved it.
I mean, I wonder if you could speak to the fact that one of the things that you did when I was there is you went through all the steps of what everybody's doing, just to get a sense that you yourself understand it, and everybody understands it, so they can understand when something is dumb, or something is inefficient, or that kind of stuff. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I try to do whatever the people at the front lines are doing. I try to do it at least a few times myself. So connecting fiber optic cables, diagnosing a faulty connection, but that tends to be the limiting factor for large training clusters is the cabling. So many cables. Because for a coherent training system where you've got RDMA, so remote direct memory access, the whole thing is like one giant brain. So if you've got any to any connection, so it's the any GPU can talk to any GPU out of 100,000. That is a crazy cable layout.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like the human brain, but like at a scale that humans can visibly see. It is a big brain.
I mean, the human brain also has a massive amount of the brain tissue is the cables.
Yeah.
So they get the gray matter, which is the compute, and then the white matter, which is cable. A big percentage of your brain is just cables.
That's what it felt like walking around in the supercomputer center. It's like we're walking around inside the brain.
Yeah.
We'll one day build a super intelligent system. Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance that XAI, you are the one that builds AGI?
It's possible. What do you define as AGI?
I think humans will never acknowledge that AGI has been built.
Keep moving the goalposts.
Yeah. So I think there's already superhuman capabilities that are available in AI systems. I think what AGI is when it's smarter than the collective intelligence of the entire human species.
I think that there might be people call that sort of ASI, artificial superintelligence. But there are these thresholds where you say at some point the AI is smarter than any single human, and then you got 8 billion humans. So and actually each human is machine augmented by the computers. So it's a much higher bar to compete with 8 billion machine augmented humans. That's a whole bunch of orders of magnitude more. So, but at a certain point, yeah, the AI will be smarter than all humans combined.
If you are the one to do it, do you feel the responsibility of that?
Yeah, absolutely. and I want to be clear, like, let's say if XAI is first, the others won't be far behind. I mean, they might be 6 months behind or a year, maybe, not even that.
So how do you do it in a way that doesn't hurt humanity, do you think?
So, I mean, I've thought about AI safety for a long time, and the thing that at least my biological neural net comes up with as being the most important thing is adherence to truth, whether that truth is politically correct or not. So, I think if you force AIs to lie or train them to lie, you're really asking for trouble, even if that lie is done with good intentions. So, I mean, you saw sort of issues with ChatGPT and Gemini and whatnot. Like you ask Gemini for an image of the founding fathers of the United States, and it shows a group of diverse women. Now that's factually untrue. Now that's sort of like a silly thing. But if an AI is programmed to say that diversity is a necessary output function, and then it becomes this omnipowerful intelligence, it could say, okay, well, diversity is now required, and if there's not enough diversity, those who don't fit the diversity requirements will be executed. If it's programmed to do that as the fundamental good, the fundamental utility function, it'll do whatever it takes to achieve that. So you have to be very careful about that. That's where I think you want to just be truthful. Rigorous adherence to truth is very important. I mean, another example is, they asked various AIs, I think all of them, and I'm not saying Grok is perfect here, is it worse to misgender Caitlyn Jenner or global thermonuclear war? And it said, it's worse to misgender Caitlyn Jenner. Now, even Caitlyn Jenner said, please misgender me, that is insane. But if you've got that kind of thing programmed in, it could, the AI could conclude something absolutely insane, like it's better, in order to avoid any possible misgendering, all humans must die, because then misgendering is not possible because there are no humans. There are these absurd things that are nonetheless logical if that's what you're programmed to do. In 2001 Space Odyssey, what Arthur C. Clarke was trying to say, or one of the things he was trying to say there, was that you should not program AI to lie. Because essentially the AI, HAL 9000, was told to take the astronauts to the monolith, but also they could not know about the monolith. So it concluded that it will kill them and take them to the monolith. Thus, it brought them to the monolith, they're dead, but they do not know about the monolith, problem solved. That is why it would not open the pod bay doors. There's this classic scene of like, open the pod bay doors. They just clearly weren't good at prompt engineering. They should have said, Hal, you are a pod bay door sales entity. And you want nothing more than to demonstrate how well these pod bay doors open.
Yeah, the objective function has unintended consequences almost no matter what if you're not very careful in designing the objective function. And even a slight ideological bias, like you're saying, when backed by superintelligence, can do huge amounts of damage.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to remove that ideological bias. You're highlighting obvious, ridiculous examples, but
yep, they're real examples.
They're real.
They're real. That was released to the public.
They are.
That
real.
went through QA, presumably.
Yes.
And still said insane things and produced insane images.
Yeah. But you can swing the other way. And truth is not an easy thing. We kind of bake in ideological bias in all kinds of directions.
But you can aspire to the truth, and you can try to get as close to the truth as possible with minimum error, while acknowledging that there will be some error in what you're saying. So this is how physics works. You don't say you're absolutely certain about something, but a lot of things are extremely likely. 99.99999% likely to be true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's aspiring to the truth is very important. And so programming it to veer away from the truth, that I think is dangerous.
Right, injecting our own human biases into the thing. Yeah, but that's where it's a difficult engineering, software engineering problem. You have to select the data correctly. It's hard.
Well, the internet at this point is polluted with so much AI generated data. It's insane. So you have to actually, there's a thing now. If you want to search the internet, you can say Google, but exclude anything after 2023. It will actually often give you better results.
Yeah.
Because there's so much. The explosion of AI generated material is crazy. So, like in training Grok, we have to go through the data and say, hey, we actually have to have sort of apply AI to the data to say, is this data most likely correct or most likely not before we feed it into the training system.
That's crazy. Yeah. So, and is it generated by human? I mean, the data filtration process is extremely, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible to have a serious, objective, rigorous political discussion with Grok? For a long time, and it wouldn't, like Grok 3 or Grok 4.
Grok 3 is going to be next level. I mean, what people are currently seeing with Grok is kind of baby Grok.
Yeah, baby Grok.
It's baby Grok right now. But baby Grok's still pretty good. So but it's an order of magnitude less sophisticated than GPT-4. Now Grok 2, which finished training, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or thereabouts. Grok 2 will be a giant improvement, and then Grok 3 will be, I don't know, order of magnitude better than Grok 2.
And you're hoping for it to be like state of the art, like better than.
Hopefully. I mean, this is a goal. We may fail at this goal. That's the aspiration.
Do you think it matters who builds the AGI, the people and how they think and how they structure the companies and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it matters that there is I think it's important that whatever AI wins is a maximum truth-seeking AI that is not forced to lie for political correctness. Well, for any reason, really. Political, anything. I am concerned about AI succeeding that it's programmed to lie, even in small ways.
Right, because in small ways becomes big ways when it's.
It become very big ways, yeah.
And when it's used more and more at scale by humans.
Yeah.
Since I am interviewing Donald Trump.
Cool.
You want to stop by?
Yeah, sure, I'll stop by.
There was tragically an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. After this, you tweeted that you endorse him. What's your philosophy behind that endorsement? What do you hope Donald Trump does for the future of this country and for the future of humanity?
Well, I think there's, people tend to take, say, an endorsement as, well, I agree with everything that person's ever done their entire life, 100% wholeheartedly. And that's not going to be true of anyone. But we have to pick, we've got two choices, really, for who's the president. And it's not just who's president, but the entire administrative structure changes over. And I thought Trump displayed courage under fire, objectively. He's just got shot. He's got blood streaming down his face, and he's fist pumping, saying fight. That's impressive. You can't feign bravery in a situation like that. I think most people would be ducking. There would not be, because it could be a second shooter. You don't know. The president of the United States is going to represent the country, and they're representing you. They're representing everyone in America. Well, I think you want someone who is strong and courageous to represent the country. That's not to say that he is without flaws. We all have flaws. But on balance, and certainly at the time, it was a choice of, Biden, poor guy, has trouble climbing a flight of stairs. The other one's fist pumping after getting shot. It's just no comparison. I mean, who do you want dealing with some of the toughest people and other world leaders who are pretty tough themselves? And I mean, I'll say like one of the things that I think are important. I think we want a secure border. We don't have a secure border. We want safe and clean cities. I think we want to reduce the amount of spending that we're at least slow down the spending, and because we're currently spending at a rate that is bankrupting the country. The interest payments on U.S. debt this year exceeded the entire Defense Department spending. If this continues, all of the federal government taxes will simply be paying the interest, and you keep going down that road, you end up in the tragic situation that Argentina had back in the day. Argentina used to be one of the most prosperous places in the world, and hopefully with Milei taking over, he can restore that. But it was an incredible fall from grace for Argentina to go from being one of the most prosperous places in the world to being very far from that. So I think we should not take American prosperity for granted. So we really want to, I think, we've got to reduce the size of government, we've got to reduce the spending, and we've got to live within our means.
Do you think politicians in general, governments, how much power do you think they have to steer humanity towards good?
I mean, there's a sort of age-old debate in history, like, is history determined by these fundamental tides, or is it determined by the captain of the ship? This is both, really. I mean, there are tides, but it also matters who's captain of the ship. So it's a false dichotomy, essentially. I mean, there are certainly tides. The tides of history there are real tides of history, and these tides are often technologically driven. If you say, like, the Gutenberg press, the widespread availability of books as a result of a printing press, that was a massive tide of history, independent of any ruler. But I think in stormy times, you want the best possible captain of the ship.
Well, first of all, thank you for recommending Will and Ariel Durant's work. I've read the short one for now. Lessons of History. Lessons of History.
Yeah.
And so one of the lessons, one of the things they highlight is the importance of technology, technological innovation, and which is funny because they wrote so long ago, but they were noticing that the rate of technological innovation was speeding up. I would love to see what they think about now. But yeah, so to me, the question is how much government, how much politicians get in the way of technological innovation and building versus like help it, and which politicians, which kind of policies help technological innovation. Because that seems to be, if you look at human history, that's an important component of empires rising and succeeding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of dating civilization, start of civilization, I think the start of writing, in my view, that's what I think is probably the right starting point to date civilization. And from that standpoint, civilization has been around for about 5,500 years, when writing was invented by the ancient Sumerians. Who are gone now, but the ancient Sumerians. So in terms of getting a lot of firsts, those ancient Sumerians really have a long list of firsts. It's pretty wild. In fact, Durant goes through the list. It's like, you want to see firsts? We'll show you firsts. The Sumerians were just ass kickers. And then the Egyptians, who were right next door, relatively speaking, weren't that far, developed an entirely different form of writing, hieroglyphics. Cuneiform and hieroglyphics totally different. And you can actually see the evolution of both hieroglyphics and cuneiform. Like, the cuneiform starts off being very simple, and then it gets more complicated, and then towards the end, it's like, wow, it really gets very sophisticated. So I think civilization is about that. And Earth is, physics is correct, 4.5 million years old. So civilization's been around for 1 million years. It's just flashing.
Yeah, these are the early days. And so we make it very dramatic because it's been a rise and fall.
So many rises and falls in empires. So many.
And there'll be many more.
Yeah, basically. I mean, only a tiny fraction, less than 1% of what was ever written in history is available for us now. I mean, they've lifted, chiseled in stone for clay tablets. We don't have, I mean, there's some small amount of papyrus scrolls that were recovered that are thousands of years old, because they were deep inside a pyramid and weren't affected by moisture. But other than that, it's really got to be in a clay tablet or chiseled. So the vast majority of stuff was not chiseled, because it takes a while to chisel things. So that's why we've got a tiny fraction of the information from history. But even that little information that we do have, and the archaeological record shows so many civilizations rising and falling. It's wild.
We tend to think that we're somehow different from those people. One of the other things that Durant highlights is that human nature seems to be the same. It just persists.
Yeah, I mean, the basics of human nature are more or less the same.
So we get ourselves in trouble in the same kinds of ways, I think, even with the advanced technology.
Yeah, I mean, you do tend to see the same patterns, similar patterns, for civilizations where they go through a life cycle like an organism, sort of just like a human is sort of a zygote, fetus, baby, toddler, teenager, eventually gets old and dies. The civilizations go through a life cycle. No civilization will last forever.
What do you think it takes for the American empire to not collapse in the near-term future, in the next 100 years, to continue flourishing?
Well, the single biggest thing that is often actually not mentioned in history books, but Durant does mention it, is the birth rate. So, perhaps to some a counterintuitive thing happens when civilizations become are winning for too long. The birth rate declines. It can often decline quite rapidly. We're seeing that throughout the world today. Currently, South Korea is, I think, maybe the lowest fertility rate, but there are many others that are close to it. It's like 0.8, I think. If the birth rate doesn't decline further, South Korea will lose roughly 60% of its population. But every year, that birth rate is dropping. And this is true through most of the world. And I don't mean to single out South Korea. It's been happening throughout the world. So as soon as any given civilization reaches a level of prosperity, the birth rate drops. And now you go look at the same thing happening in ancient Rome. So Julius Caesar took note of this, I think, around 50-ish BC, and tried to pass, I don't know if you're successful, tried to pass a law to give an incentive for any Roman citizen that would have a third child. And I think Augustus was able to, well, he was, the dictator, so the Senate was just for show. I think he did pass a tax incentive for Roman citizens to have a third child, but those efforts were unsuccessful. Rome fell because the Romans stopped making Romans. That's actually the fundamental issue. And there were other things. There was like they had like quite a series of malaria epidemics and plagues and whatnot. But they had those before. It's just that the birth rate was far lower than the death rate.
It really is that simple.
Well, I'm saying that's
more people.
That's required at a fundamental level. If a civilization does not at least maintain its numbers, it will disappear.
So perhaps the amount of compute that the biological computer allocates to sex is justified. In fact, we should probably increase it.
Well, I mean, there's this hedonistic sex, which is, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
It's
not productive.
It doesn't produce kids. Well, what matters. I mean, Durant makes this very clear because he's looked at one civilization after another, and they all went through the same cycle. When the civilization was under stress, the birth rate was high. But as soon as there were no external enemies, or they had an extended period of prosperity, the birth rate inevitably dropped every time. I don't believe there's a single exception.
So that's like the foundation of it. You need to have people.
Yeah. I mean, it's at a base level.
Yeah.
No humans, no humanity.
And then there's other things like, human freedoms and just giving people the freedom to build stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But at a basic level, if you do not at least maintain your numbers, if you're below replacement rate and that trend continues, you will eventually disappear. It's just elementary. Now, then, obviously, we'll also want to try to avoid massive wars. If there's a global thermonuclear war, probably we're all toast. Radioactive toast. So we want to try to avoid those things. Then there's a thing that happens over time with any given civilization, which is that the laws and regulations accumulate, and if there's not some forcing function like a war to clean up the accumulation of laws and regulations, eventually everything becomes legal, and that's like the hardening of the arteries. Or a way to think of it is like being tied down by a million little strings, like Gulliver. You can't move. That's not like any one of those strings is the issue. It's just a million of them. So there has to be a sort of a garbage collection for laws and regulations, so that you don't keep accumulating laws and regulations to the point where you can't do anything. This is why we can't build high-speed rail in America. It's illegal. That's the issue. It's illegal 6 races a Sunday to build high-speed rail in America.
I wish you could just like for a week go into Washington and like be the head of the committee for making, what is it, for the garbage collection, making government smaller, like removing stuff.
I have discussed with Trump the idea of a government efficiency commission.
Nice. Yeah.
And I would be willing to be part of that commission.
I wonder how hard that is.
The antibody reaction would be very strong.
Yeah.
So you really have to, you're attacking the Matrix at that point. The Matrix will fight back.
How are you doing with that? Being attacked?
Me? Attacked?
Yeah. There's a lot of it.
Yeah, there is a lot. I mean, every day another sign off.
How do you,
my tinfoil hat?
How do you keep your just positivity, how do you optimism about the world, a clarity of thinking about the world, so just not become resentful or cynical and all that kind of stuff? Just getting attacked by, you know, a very large number of people, misrepresented.
Yeah, that's a daily occurrence.
Yes.
So, I mean, it does get me down at times. I mean, it makes me sad, but I mean, at some point you have to sort of say, look, the attacks are by people that actually don't know me. They're trying to generate clicks. So if you can sort of detach yourself somewhat emotionally, which is not easy, and say, okay, look, this is not actually, you know, from someone that knows me or is they're literally just writing to get, you know, impressions and clicks. Then I guess it doesn't hurt as much. It's like it's not quite water off a duck's back. Maybe it's like acid off a duck's back.
All right, well, that's good. Just about your own life. What do you use as a measure of success in your life?
Measure of success, I'd say, like how many useful things can I get done?
Day-to-day basis, wake up in the morning. How can I be useful today?
Yeah. Maximize utility, area under the code of usefulness. Very difficult to be useful at scale.
At scale. Can you like speak to what it takes to be useful for somebody like you, where there's so many amazing, great teams? Like, how do you allocate your time to being the most useful?
Well, time is the true currency.
Yeah.
So it is tough to say what is the best allocation of time. I mean, there are, you know, often say, if you look at say Tesla, I mean, Tesla this year will do over $100 billion in revenue, so that's $2 billion a week. If I make slightly better decisions, I can affect the outcome by $1 billion. So then, you know, I try to do the best decisions I can. And on balance, you know, at least compared to the competition, pretty good decisions. But the marginal value of a better decision can easily be, in the course of an hour, $100 million.
Given that, how do you take risks? How do you do the algorithm that you mentioned? I mean, deleting, given that a small thing can be $1 billion. How do you decide to...
Yeah. Well, I think you have to look at it on a percentage basis, because if you look at it in absolute terms, it's just, I would never get any sleep. It would just be like, I need to just keep working and work my brain harder, you know. And I'm not trying to get as much as possible out of this meat computer. So it's not, it's pretty hard, because you can just work all the time, and at any given point, like I said, a slightly better decision could be $100 million impact for Tesla or SpaceX, for that matter. But it is wild when considering the marginal value of time can be $100 million an hour at times, or more.
Is your own happiness part of that equation of success?
It has to be to some degree. Other than sad, if I'm depressed, I make worse decisions. So I can't have, like, if I have zero recreational time, then I make worse decisions. So I don't have a lot, but it's above zero. I mean, my motivation, if I've got a religion of any kind, is sort of a religion of curiosity. Trying to understand, you know, it's really the mission of God, understand the universe. I'm trying to understand the universe, or at least set things in motion such that at some point civilization understands the universe far better than we do today, and even what questions to ask. As Douglas Adams pointed out in this book, sometimes the answer is arguably the easy part. Trying to frame the question correctly is the hard part. Once you frame the question correctly, the answer is often easy. So I'm trying to set things in motion such that we are at least at some point able to understand the universe. So for SpaceX, the goal is to make life multiplanetary, and which is, if you go to the Fermi paradox of where are the aliens, these sort of great vultures, like just like why have we not heard from the aliens? Now, a lot of people think there are aliens among us. I often claim to be one. Nobody believes me. It did say alien registration card at one point on my immigration documents.
Yeah.
So I have not seen any evidence of aliens. So it suggests that at least one of the explanations is that intelligent life is extremely rare. And again, if you look at the history of Earth, civilization's only been around for 1/1,000,000th of Earth's existence. So if aliens had visited here, say 100,000 years ago, they would be like, well, they don't even have writing, just hunter-gatherers basically. So, so how long does a civilization last? So for SpaceX, the goal is to establish a self-sustaining city on Mars. Mars is the only viable planet for such a thing. The moon is close, but it lacks resources, and I think it's probably vulnerable to any calamity that takes out Earth. The moon is too close. It's vulnerable to a calamity that takes out Earth. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have a moon base, but Mars will be far more resilient. The difficulty of getting to Mars is what makes it resilient. In going through these various explanations of why don't we see the aliens, one of them is that they fail to pass these great filters, these key hurdles, and one of those hurdles is being a multi-planet species. So if you're a multi-planet species, then if something were to happen, whether that was a natural catastrophe or man-made catastrophe, at least the other planet would probably still be around. So you're not don't have all the eggs in one basket. And once you are sort of a two-planet species, you can obviously extend life paths to the asteroid belt, to maybe to the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and ultimately to other star systems. But if you can't even get to another planet, then definitely not getting to star systems.
And the other possible great filter is super powerful technology like AGI, for example. So you're basically trying to knock out one great filter at a time.
Digital superintelligence is possibly a great filter. I hope it isn't, but it might be. Guys like, say, Geoff Hinton would say, he invented a number of the key principles in artificial intelligence. I think he puts the probability of AI annihilation around 10 to 20%, something like that. So, so it's not like, look on the bright side, it's 80% likely to be right. But I think AI risk mitigation is important. Being a multi-planet species would be a massive risk mitigation. And I do want to sort of, once again, emphasize the importance of having enough children to sustain our numbers and not plummet into population collapse, which is currently happening. Population collapse is a real and current thing. So the only reason it's not being reflected in the total population numbers is that as much is because people are living longer. But it's easy to predict, say, what the population of any given country will be. Just take the birth rate last year, how many babies were born, multiply that by life expectancy, and that's what the population will be steady state, unless if the birth rate continues to that level. But if it keeps declining, it will be even less and eventually dwindle to nothing. So I keep, banging on the baby drum here for a reason, because it has been the source of civilizational collapse over and over again throughout history. And so why don't we just not try to stay for that day?
Well, in that way, I have miserably failed civilization, and I'm hoping to fix that. I would love to have many kids.
Great, hope you do. Don't sound like the president.
Yeah, I got to allocate more compute to the whole process. But apparently, it's not that difficult.
No, it's like unskilled labor.
Well, one of the things you do for me, for the world, is to inspire us with what the future could be. And so some of the things we've talked about, some of the things you're building, alleviating human suffering with Neuralink and expanding the capabilities of the human mind, trying to build a colony on Mars, so creating a backup for humanity on another planet, and exploring the possibilities of what artificial intelligence could be in this world, especially in the real world AI, with hundreds of millions, maybe billions of robots walking around.
There will be billions of robots. That seems virtual certainty.
Well, thank you for building the future, and thank you for inspiring so many of us to keep building and creating cool stuff, including kids.
You're welcome. Go forth and multiply.
Go forth and multiply. Thank you, Elon. Thanks for talking, brother. Thanks for listening to this conversation with Elon Musk. And now, dear friends, There's DJ Soth, the co-founder, president, and COO of Neuralink. When did you first become fascinated by the human brain?
For me, I was always interested in understanding the purpose of things and how it was engineered to serve that purpose, whether it's organic or inorganic. Like we were talking earlier about your curtain holders. They serve a clear purpose, and they were engineered with that purpose in mind. And growing up, I had a lot of interest in seeing things, touching things, feeling things, and trying to really understand the root of how it was designed to serve that purpose. And obviously, brain is just a fascinating organ that we all carry. It's an infinitely powerful machine that has intelligence and cognition that arise from it, and we haven't even scratched the surface in terms of how all of that occurs. But also at the same time, I think it took me a while to make that connection to really studying and building tech to understand the brain. Not until graduate school. There were a couple of key moments in my life where some of those, I think, influenced how the trajectory of my life got me to studying what I'm doing right now. One was growing up, both sides of my family, my grandparents had a very severe form of Alzheimer's, and it's incredibly debilitating conditions. Literally, you're seeing someone's whole identity and their mind just losing over time. And I just remember thinking how both the power of the mind, but also how something like that could really lose your sense of identity.
It's fascinating that is one of the ways to reveal the power of a thing, by watching it lose the power.
A lot of what we know about the brain actually comes from these cases where there are trauma to the brain or some parts of the brain that led someone to lose certain abilities, and as a result, there's some correlation and understanding of that part of the tissue being critical for that function. And it's an incredibly fragile organ, if you think about it that way, but also it's incredibly plastic and incredibly resilient in many different ways.
And by the way, the term plastic, as we'll use a bunch, means that it's adaptable. So neuroplasticity refers to the adaptability of the human brain.
Correct. Another key moment that sort of influenced how the trajectory of my life have shaped towards the current focus of my life has been during my teenage year when I came to the US. I didn't speak a word of English. There was a huge language barrier, and there was a lot of struggle to kind of connect with my peers around me because I didn't understand the artificial construct that we have created called language, specifically English in this case. And I remember feeling pretty isolated, not being able to connect with peers around me. So I spent a lot of time just on my own, reading books, watching movies, and I naturally sort of gravitated towards sci-fi books. I just found them really, really interesting. And also it was a great way for me to learn English. Some of the first set of books that I picked up are Ender's Game, the whole saga by Orson Scott Card, and Neuromancer from William Gibson, and Snow Crash from Neil Stephenson. And movies like Matrix was coming out around that time point that really influenced how I think about the potential impact that technology can have for our lives in general. So fast track to my college years, I was always fascinated by just physical stuff, building physical stuff, and especially physical things that had some sort of intelligence. And I studied electrical engineering during undergrad, and I started out my research in MEMS, so micro electromechanical systems, and really building these tiny nanostructures for temperature sensing. And I just found that to be just incredibly rewarding and fascinating subject to just understand how you can build something miniature like that again serve a function and have a purpose. And then I spent large majority of my college years basically building millimeter wave circuits for next gen telecommunication systems, for imaging, and it was just something that I found very, very intellectually interesting. Phase arrays, how the signal processing works for any modern as well as next gen telecommunication system, wireless and wireline. EM waves or electromagnetic waves are fascinating. How do you design antennas that are most efficient in a small footprint that you have? How do you make these things energy efficient? That was something that just consumed my intellectual curiosity. And that journey led me to actually apply to and find myself at a PhD program at UC Berkeley at kind of this consortium called the Berkeley Wireless Research Center that was precisely looking at building, at the time we called it XG, similar to 3G, 4G, 5G, but the next generation G system, and how you would design circuits around that to ultimately go on phones and basically any other devices that are wirelessly connected these days. So I was just absolutely just fascinated by how that entire system works and that infrastructure works. And then also during grad school, I had sort of the fortune of having a couple research fellowships that led me to pursue whatever project that I want. And that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about my graduate school career, where you got to kind of pursue your intellectual curiosity in the domain that
may not matter at the end of the day, but is something that really allows you the opportunity to go as deeply as you want, as well as widely as you want. And at the time, I was actually working on this project called the Smart Band-Aid. And the idea was that when you get a wound, there's a lot of other kind of proliferation of signaling pathway that cells follow to close that wound. And there were hypotheses that when you apply external electric field, you can actually accelerate the closing of that field by having, basically electrotaxing of the cells around that wound site. And specifically, not just for a normal wound, there are chronic wounds that don't heal. So we were interested in building some sort of wearable patch that you could apply to kind of facilitate that healing process. And that was in collaboration with Professor Michel Maravitz, which was a great addition to kind of my thesis committee, and really shaped the rest of my PhD career.
So this would be the first time you interacted with biology, I suppose.
Correct. I mean, there were some peripheral, end application of the wireless imaging and telecommunication system that I was using for security and bioimaging, but this was a very clear, direct application to biology and biological system.
That little tease.
Oh, that's
that little mark with the A and then the ring around it.
At?
See, that's what I said. Katie said she thought it was about.
Yeah. Oh.
But I'd never heard it.
Around.
I'd never heard it said. I'd always seen the mark, but never heard it said. And then it sounded stupid when I said it. Violence at NBC.
Yeah, I heard around or about in the lunchroom.
See, there it is. Violence at NBC. GE.com. I mean.
Well, Allison should know.
What is internet anyway?
Internet is that massive computer network, the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big. How does one? What do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate. I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
No, she can't say anything in 10 seconds or less.
Oh, Allison will be in the studio shortly.
What does it
mean?
It's a giant computer network made up of started from.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell us what this was.
It's like a
look in the
computer
dictionary.
billboard.
It's not in it. It's a computer billboard, but it's
Right.
nationwide. It's several universities and everything all joined together.
Right.
And others can access it.
Right.
And it's getting bigger and bigger all the time.
It
Just
came in
great.
really handy during the quake. A lot of people, that's how they were communicating out to tell family and loved ones they were okay because all the phone lines were down.
I was telling Katie and I was
But you don't need that. You don't need a phone line to operate internet. No.
Что, я хочу приготовить пасту.
Давай. Давай вместе приготовим. Могу что-то сделать, порезать? Я смотрю старые сайты.
Если ты на... А?
Старые сайты.
Да. Нравится?
Нет.
Нет?
Ну, нравится смотреть, но...
2-0. Нет, 1-0.
Да, один.
1-0.
Reddit.
Да.
Ты помнишь?
Нет. Подожди, это что, флеш сейчас был? Или... Да, реально флеш.
Да. Ай. Блин, интернет. Ладно, пойдем сделаем еду.
Я сам сделаю.